Hello, it's Jane Adshead-Grant, and today I'm delighted to be interviewing Jane Constantinis. I met Jane almost a year ago following the London Business School Women in Business conference. We got on really well and learned more about each other's business, and I had the wonderful opportunity of attending Jane's unique presentation skills workshop recently. And so I invited Jane to this interview to share more of her wisdom with you. And so Jane, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved in training others in effective communication and presentation skills.
Yeah. Hi, Jane. And you were a very good pupil, by the way. Very diligent. So I started my working life in corporate and financial PR and advertising, and then branding and corporate identity. So very much helping businesses to communicate more effectively. Then I went off to the BBC to become a voiceover. So the on live television, the people who pop up and say now on BBC One the news. And I did that for about 7 years. And while I was there doing that job, I got involved in training because the BBC had a contract to help diplomats who were going off to high profile postings to, sharpen up their communication skills. So that was 20 years ago. Then I moved into presenting. So I did business news on BBC World, lots of corporate series, lots of other broadcast series, continued to be a voiceover, moved into live events, so facilitating and speaking at live events. So all of my working life really in front of a camera, a microphone or an audience. And for 20 years, the training has grown alongside all the other work, which is fantastic and brilliant for me because I still am a voiceover and a presenter and a facilitator because I learn, I'm sure you'd agree, Jane, in the training room or the coaching room, you learn every time you work with a new person. And then I bring those experiences of live television and voiceovers and so on to the training room. And I think that's very helpful for the people that I work with.
Wonderful. Absolutely. I concur totally. And in your experience from that background you've just shared with us, what do you find as the key challenges to delivering a good presentation, for example?
The word that comes up time and time again is confidence.
Yeah.
It's what everybody seeks. It's what many people lack. And I think what they fear, that they often fear that they haven't got the natural abilities, the natural attributes to be an effective communicator or presenter. I think a lot of people don't actually know how to prepare. They may recognize that they probably need to do more. I believe passionately that preparation is the key to success in life generally, but particularly in this area. But they don't know quite how to prepare. And they very often don't have any of the, what you might call technical skills around how you structure a presentation, how you choreograph, I'll come back to that later, a piece of communication, how you bring your ideas to life. But the really good news for people when they come to me with these sorts of issues is it's not a gift. It's not something that you're born with, an ability to stand up and structure a brilliant presentation. It is a skill. It's a set of skills that you can learn. It's like a sport. Any fool can put on a pair of skis and get down a slope, and they can do that for 20 years, but they're not doing beautifully carved parallel turns. You want to do that, you get a lesson and you acquire some techniques. And this is exactly the same. And because of all my years working in front of a camera and a microphone, blah, 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 the way that I work with people is very, very practical. It's all very tangible. It's not some sort of management consultancy babble, because you've got to help people on two levels. One is the practical tools that I've just described, the technical skills, if you like. But the other is what's going on in their head. And that's where the confidence thing comes in.
And what do you mean there, Jane, by structuring? What is the technique to structure a good presentation?
Well, Steve Jobs was the master of this. If you ever watch any of his work, he choreographed his presentations down to the second. And you know what we recognize now, we as communicators or speakers, if we're going to be communicating in a formal setting, is that audiences have very short concentration spans. In fact, I did a very interesting analysis the other day with a group of school children, actually, where we compared Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech with Sir Ken Robinson, a TED talk, where he's talking about his premise is that that education kills creativity. And 60 years apart or something, the two, very, very different styles of presentation. And it was so interesting working with these children who had great insights, unexpectedly good, I thought, insights into how these two men were communicating and how it was different. And I've completely forgotten what I was talking about then. Structure. Why am I telling you about Martin Luther King and Ken Robinson? Absolutely no idea. So the two of them were effective communicators, are effective communicators for their time. So Martin Luther King, I'm back on track. Martin Luther King could get away with a very long presentation with beautifully crafted syntax and so on, and long sentence structure because of the audience, because it was right for the time. Ken Robinson is competing with YouTube clips that are 2.5 minutes on average. The average clip viewed on YouTube is 2.5 minutes. The average soundbite in the States now is 9 seconds. Wow. So Ken Robinson has to communicate in a very different way. He has to be more conversational, shorter sentences. Now, in terms of structure, back to the question, we can work at different levels, obviously, but at the basic level, there are 3 things. One is a strong opening and a strong closing. So how many people do you hear who kind of drift into a presentation and they say, you know, the hello, nice to be here, thanks for having me, I'm going to talk about, and it goes on for about a minute and they haven't said anything, and then they shambles out of it at the other end. So strong opening, strong closing, and then avoid the stream of consciousness. That's the killer. I describe that as a fillet steak. So your fantastic content is like a fillet steak, but then you cover it in gravy. It's a stream of consciousness. You can't see it. You can't enjoy the value of it. So break your content up into, I like to call them chapters. Think of it as a book. You have to have self-contained chapters, and you have to have good pauses between the chapters to let the audience absorb what you've said before they're ready to move on to the next content. So in simple terms, that's what I mean by structure.
Wonderful. I love your analogies. They're so powerful. So what would you recommend to someone in terms of how would they get started? That's a great place to start, isn't it, with that structure?
Yeah.
And what else would you recommend for them if they wanted to sharpen their presentation skills?
Well, there are 3 pillars, if you like, of the temple of good communication. One is the ideas, the content. The second one is what I call packaging. So that's how you illustrate those ideas, how you bring the ideas to life, how you use examples or case studies or quotations, props, visuals. And the third one is performance. It's a bit like giving somebody a present. So you've got the thing that's on the inside of the box. You've got, whether it's a box or some bubble wrap or a beautiful wrapping paper with a ribbon, that's the packaging. And then you've got the way that you deliver it, how you hand it to them. That's the performance thing. So I think you can aim for clarity of message. That's really, really important. Put yourself to the test. Can I communicate in a very short amount of time, let's say 15 seconds, what I would spend an hour communicating? Can I condense it down to 15 seconds? And if you can't, this is hard, by the way, this is really hard for a lot of people. If you can't, that suggests that you haven't got clarity of message. Packaging, think very logically about how you're going to bring your ideas to life. Let's hear the phrase, for example, a lot in your presentation. Don't give us abstracts. bring it to life, paint pictures with your words, get people to visualize what you're talking about, surprise them with, I use props in my training, you may remember, visuals. Don't give them 5 bullets, give them an image, because that might surprise them and it'll be more memorable. And then in terms of performance, and I use the word performance advisedly, this is where you're using your body and your face and your voice for impact, to make a connection, to be memorable. One of the key things there is energy and enthusiasm. If you're not energetic and enthusiastic about your content, guess what? They won't be either. So you've got to raise your game. Now, this is where I'm using the word performance. It's not acting. It's very, very definitely not acting. But it is about just being slightly bigger, more energetic than you are in normal conversation, while remaining absolutely authentic. You must, this is such an important word, authenticity. Audiences really value it. You must remain like, a human being, not some sort of overly polished robot. So I think if you focus on those 3 things, the packaging and the performance, that will give you a very good starting point.
Wonderful. And I remember, Jane, you shared with me the idea of rehearsal, and that really helped me.
Yeah.
In relation to coming across authentically and feeling confident in when I had to stand up and speak in front of an audience.
How funny that you've just said that rehearsal enables you to be more authentic. Isn't that interesting? Because you might think the opposite, might you? You might say, oh, but if it's over rehearsed, it'll sound as if I'm, reading it, or I've learned it, or whatever. But of course, what you and I worked on together is that rehearsal does not mean that you've written a script and learned it, or that you're reading it. It means rehearsing, articulating the ideas, but being confident with the fact that it comes out differently every time. Yeah. But there's something really important, isn't there, about getting your voice out there, filling the silence. This is what a lot of people fear. It makes you more confident with pauses too. And, being able to hold an audience in the palm of your hand during a pause that you're in control of is such a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
It is. Well, Jane, that's been fabulous and so insightful. And I wonder, how can people contact you to learn more about what you do and, like me, have the opportunity to experience one of your wonderful masterclasses in communication and, in fact, presentation skills?
Well, I've got a website, janeconstantinis.com, and there's a telephone number on there, so they could ring, and then we could talk about what they need. And then I think it's important to say that whether whoever the trainer is that people choose to work with, it's very important that they get proper one-to-one attention, rather than something that's just off the shelf, because every individual has their own set of challenges and objectives, and they will require a slightly different treatment, and they will go away with different new skills and new habits that will hopefully then become embedded over time. So I think that that personal one-to-one attention is really important for everybody.
Yes, and I truly again concur with that. For me, it was remarkable and tailored to exactly what I needed. So thank you. Well, Jane, thank you so much for today. I'm delighted to have had this opportunity and to share your tips with my subscribers and your subscribers too. And I look forward to the next time we can do something similar.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.